Hello everyone, Ray here, and today I'm going to tell you guys a story. For those of you who don't know, I made a post on Twitter asking for your names for a video, and this is that video. So how it works is I listed the people's names that responded, 1 to 42. I also listed the names of the characters I need, 1 to 42. Then I did a random number generator, 1 to 42. Then I went down the list of characters I needed, randoming each person for that role. So for role number 1, I rolled and I got, let's just say, 6. And then if I rolled a 6 for the next person, or the next character, I would take the next lower number. So I'd take 5. But yeah, each roll is completely random. So obviously I didn't pick each person for their role. Some people are going to be more involved than others, because the way I did this was kind of a D&D type of campaign start, because honestly I didn't really know how else to fit everybody in. 42 names is a lot, and this is actually like my second time recording this. The first time was like an hour and a half long, and then the second time was like 40, but it's really cringy, so I'm trying to make it less so. But after this one, I'm gonna release it to the world. I know it's cringy, and I only can supplement it that much, you know? But I will be talking to the viewer, you guys, if you're not in it, as if you're also a main character in the main party. So since it is in D&D style, there's going to be some people that have more prominent roles than others. But since it's random, I don't know what to say. I'm not picking favorites here, although some of you might think so. The last thing I want to say before we get started is I want to thank you guys so much for getting me to 1,000 subscribers. I could not even imagine 1,000 people watching or listening to me to go to sleep. It's absolutely crazy, and I have something special planned for my next video. So look forward to that. And I lied, there's another thing I want to say before I start. I want to start uploading every Wednesday, although this one will be a little different because, well, I was planning on releasing it Wednesday, and like I said, I recorded it a few times, so I'm just releasing this whenever I get done with it, and then maybe take next week off because the next thing is going to be a big step for me, and then release the newest video, the 1K celebration video, the week after. So that's the plan, every Wednesday. We'll see if I can keep up to it with it. Classes are about to start up again in a week or so, so we'll see how it goes. But you know me, I am the king of rambling on forever. It's already been like 4 minutes and I haven't done anything, so let's get into it. So let's just start off with a little bit of world building. So this world is made up of 3 empires currently fighting for control. There's the Zarmorian Empire, ruled by Shani, the Distaric Empire, ruled by Cody, and the Tholmir Empire, ruled by Madison. And you, the viewer, are new to the adventuring game and have taken a ship to the port city of Wendenshire. Back in your hometown, you were given an opportunity to help this town in their recent bandit troubles. You were told to meet with a party that is assigned with the same task at a tavern. The bandits have been there for a few months, and they're looking for outside help. So, a party is necessary if the local law enforcement can't keep it under control themselves. You were given 2 names. One was the name of the tavern, which is the Crooked Crossbow, and the second name is the owner, Christopher. And you ask around, and it's not hard to have someone point you in the direction of the tavern. And before you know it, it's a 5-minute walk, and you're there. You open the door, and you immediately smell alcohol. As it is 1 o'clock p.m., it is ample time to drink some alcoholic beverages. But you get a scan of the room, and you see a multitude of different races, which is to be expected in a port town. Although Wyndhamshire is pretty small for a port town. It's got like 1,000 residents at most. The rest are just in and out for a couple days. But you spot a dwarf behind the bar, which you would assume is Christopher. He has orange hair, pulled back into a ponytail, and a long beard. He also has some scars, which you would assume comes from his own adventures. But you also see someone who looks similar to Christopher, running around the tavern, taking orders. But you see in the middle of the tavern a group of people who look a little bit more well-equipped than the average patron. But you want to get a room first, because you imagine that it might take a few days to sort out all this bandit business. So you walk over to the bar and ask for a room for a few nights. Christopher is happy to oblige any willing patron, as the bandits have made it tough for business lately. He introduces you to his brother, which was the one taking the orders. His name is Curry. But they give you a bit of a discount after you tell them that you are there for the bandit problem. You decide to get a little drink and then head on over to the table that you assume to be your party members. You sit down and wait for their conversation to be over to introduce yourself. As you wait, you make some observations. You can see on the far side of the table, on the left, there is a half-elf with long blonde hair, braided, brown eyes, carries a bow. Across from the half-elf, there is a dwarf who is bald and carries a daibo. He also has a few scars of his own, but not nearly as many as Christopher. Next to the half-elf, there is a human who's fairly tall for a human, wears glasses, and has long brown hair, and is currently reading rather than conversing with the others. Across from the human, there is a Goliath, and now the Goliath is tall, at least 7 feet tall, and very muscular. One odd thing that you notice about the Goliath is that they are in full plate armor. Now, with your experience of tales at this point, you always heard in tales that Goliaths don't really wear a lot of armor. It's usually, just cloth or like leather, very light, heavy armor. But this one seems to be wearing full plate armor and is, has a few symbols of some religion you're not entirely sure of. But there they are, talking away. As you sit down and wait for their conversations to be over, the half-elf meets your gaze. Everyone's conversations quickly subside, and they introduce themselves to you one at a time. The half-elf introduces himself as Wingling Dingling, ready to ringling. Now, as with any normal person, when you hear this name, you almost burst out into laughter. And, this person senses that and quickly follows up with, "My parents weren't so generous on the name. You can just call me Wingo." But in the back of your mind, you're thinking if you ever want to mess with this person, you should just call them by that name. The dwarf is the next one to introduce himself. He introduces himself as Garrett. gives you a nice hearty handshake. The human looks up from the book, gives you a nice handshake and a heartwarming smile. He introduces himself as Brian. And from this friendly introduction, you gather that the fact that they were reading the book and not conversing with others isn't because they were necessarily cold or didn't want to talk, but they were very fascinated and encapsulated by what they were reading. The last one at the table, the Goliath, gives you a nice forearm handshake. You clasp and shake, and he introduces himself as Mizu. As you begin to, make your own introduction of yourself to them, and while you're here and, just starting to get down into the nitty-gritty, you feel a hand grasp your right shoulder. It's a very small hand, but you turn around nonetheless, and you see a halfling with short curly brown hair and 2 daggers on the side of their belt. And they question if they are good enough to meet your acquaintance. You're taken back for this, as you meant no offense to anybody, but you just didn't see this person when you walked in. The halfling quickly responds, insisting it was a joke, and you get that it was, with the halfling smile and laughter. Just wanted to mess with you a bit, you gather. He introduces himself as Matt, and just like that, you have your adventuring party. There are 6 of you: yourself, Wingo, Garrett, Brian, Mizu, and Matt. So you guys sit down and talk and kind of get each other's backstories a bit and where everyone comes from. And you eventually get to why you're here. You kind of brainstorm some ideas, and Wingo brings up the fact that he heard something about talking to one of the ship captains that, transfer goods and people, and said that they might have something to say about the bandits. Garrett also brings up another fact, that the blacksmith might have something to say about it as well. You all gather it's probably a good idea before you go and talk to the mayor about the issue, as he is the one assigning the task to you, to go and try to get some background information first, so it might be helpful. So you guys decide to wrap it up at the Crooked Crossbow and head on over to the docks. It's also a good idea because the docks are on the outskirts of town, so you guys can do all your business in the middle of town. So everyone takes the 5-minute walk over to the docks, and you ask around for a bit, and there's a fisherman and his son who direct you towards a certain captain. They describe him as a man who wears a tricorn hat. He's got a bit of a beard, not anything extravagant, but a little bit of a beard. He's got long hair, and he's got a compass that he carries around. Black compass, one that doesn't point north. Everyone thinks he's a bit off, but he gets the job done. And he goes by the name Captain Sparrow, but he prefers to be called Captain Mason. But everyone calls him Captain Sparrow when they're not talking directly to him. Everyone thinks it just rolls off the tongue better. But it's easy enough to find this Captain Mason because it is about that time of the day where the ships start coming in for the day, and the captains seek shelter in the city. So you're able to catch Captain Mason as he is coming off the dock. Wingo leads the conversation, as it is his information that brought you there. There is some light introductions, and Wingo goes right into the meat and potatoes, asking what does he know about these bandits that have been causing a muck. Captain Mason assures him that they are a problem, and they have been for some time, but he can't offer that much information other than what their leader looks like and a potential number associated with the bandits. He only ever deals with the bandits when they come to collect their booty, so to speak. but he explains their leader as an orc with a big two-handed sword with two tusks jutting out the jaw. He also is adorned with white face paint in the shape of a hand over his face. He's also seen two other bandits that roll with a sword and shield with him sometimes as extra muscle, as well as a hooded individual. But Captain Mason reassures that the blacksmith might have some extra information for us because he has dealt with these bandits a little bit more physically over the last couple weeks. You all thank him for his information, and he says in response that once you guys have gone and vanquished the bandits from this town, to talk to him, because he may be able to offer his services in the future. And who knows when a captain of a ship might come in handy. You all start beginning to walk back towards the center of town when you realized you probably should have asked him where the blacksmith's place was. It's okay, you're all very new to this adventuring thing still. And you guys recognize a smoke column about 2 minutes away from the crooked crossbow. You guys have some conversation along the way to further your conversation at the tavern of why you guys are here, and it all boils down to, for each of you basically, that you wanted to start adventuring and some coin and some connections couldn't hurt. So you guys make your way to the blacksmith. It's easy enough to find with the column of smoke coming from the blacksmith's place. And you guys knock on the door. No response, but you can hear the sound of a hammer striking metal. Ting, ting, ting. Garrett and Mizu quickly get impatient and barge in. The blacksmith says, "Who's there?" You gather that since he's had run-ins in with the bandits, someone barging in is not welcome. You guys quickly introduce yourselves and explain why you're there, and all the tension is immediately dropped. But he introduces himself as Rocky. Garrett and Mizu lead this conversation, seeing as they barged into the blacksmith's place, and ask him what he knows about the bandits. Well, you learn that the reason why he got physical with the bandits was they came in demanding that he make them some pretty things, and he denied. And after a while, they got tired of that and decided to rough him up a bit. But as a result, the blacksmith has some nice information for you. Along with Captain Mason's information, you gather that there are 7 total bandits. There's the leader, the 2 sword and shield users, the hooded figure, and 3 archers. That is the most information the blacksmith can give you. In terms of gear and equipment, anything you see is on sale, and you could put in some requests if you'd like. But your party seems to be well equipped enough, so no one's really interested in what he has, but he said he might have something special if you come back later. He needs to get it out of his stash. He stored it away so the bandits couldn't get to it. But you thank him for his information and his secret stash of items that he will retrieve later, and you guys think it's a good idea to head over to the mayor's estate. So, you know where it is. You've saw it. You've crossed it on the way to the blacksmith's house. It stands in the middle of the marketplace, or kind of in the middle of the marketplace. And it's not very large. The Wyndhamshire, like I mentioned previously, isn't the largest of towns, but it is nicer than the rest of the houses here, and is directly attached to the guard's post. But once you get back to the marketplace and make it to the estate, you are greeted by the captain of the guard, and he introduces himself as Lunas Batman. And you introduce yourselves and why you are there, and he expresses that the mayor has been waiting for you. And it wasn't like in a bad way or in a malicious way at all, but he just wanted to let you know that the mayor is ready to see you. Now, even from this brief interaction, you guys get the inclination that he is not a bad man like his name might have suggests. But this isn't the first time today that you didn't judge someone by their name. But you walk in, and for those of you who've played a Skyrim, it's basically the Jarl's place without any of the extra rooms. It's just that long corridor of like those 2 long tables on each side and the throne in the back. That's pretty much all it is. It's just a long hallway, probably about 15 to 20 feet long and about 40 feet back. Like I said, not too extravagant, but suitable. So you guys introduce yourselves, and the mayor's happy to see you. He says, "Please call me Steven." You guys feel like, since the mayor is referring to himself as, on a first name basis, that this is pretty serious. But you greet him as such, and you guys start to discuss the bandit matter. Now, you express to him that you've done your own research around the town and that you've gathered that there are 7 bandits and, what kind of weaponry they have and all that good stuff and what the leader looks like. Now, he's impressed by your initiative and basically only has to add the names of each individual bandit. Now, since the bandits have been here for a while and people talk, they were able to, surmise the names of each of these bandits. The leader is Dusty. The 2 that wield sword and shields are Leanne and Andrew. The one that is hooded and what they gather is some sort of arcane user is named Oatcake. And the 3 archers are named Jeff, Justin, and Famcam. And that's really all the other information he has for you on the bandits, that is. But for the job, they're offering 10 gold bounty for each of the bandits, but 30 for their leader. So there's a total of 90 gold to be split amongst your party. And he says that there might be another job in it for you if you're able to handle this. But he says to come back after this job is done. But as you guys are talking, you see out of the corner of your eye coming down the stairs, because I may have forgot to mention that it is 2 floors. You assume that the mayor lives on the 2nd floor. But you see what you could assume to be his wife and 2 children coming down the stairs. Mayor greets his wife and children and introduces you to him. His wife is named Vix, and their 2 children, one son, Liger, and 1 daughter, Kim. Both fairly young. The son is probably around 14, you surmise, and the daughter's around 10. But based on the husband and wife chatter, you can kind of assume that the wife, Vix, is the one that kind of handles the business side of the town, and Steven is more of the law and order. But you say nice to meet you and goodbye and want to head out and go back to Rocky's place to see if he's got that item or items from his stash that he told you guys about. So you leave and say goodbye to Lunas as you leave the estate of Steven. So you make the couple-minute walk back over to the blacksmith and greet Rocky once again. This time Rocky's holding a sword. Looks like any old long sword, but he asks you to grab it and take a few swings. And as you do so, it seems lighter almost, it seems easier. And he props up a wooden log and asks you to take a swing. And as you do so, you cut it like a hot knife through butter. It is far easier than what you would imagine a normal longsword would do. Now, for those of you who play D&D, basically all this means is that it's a +1. It's just a little bit more nice. Baraki says that he was keeping that safe so that the bandits couldn't get their hands on it. And if you get rid of them, you can feel free to keep that. So you say thanks to Rocky, and you guys head back to the Crooked Crossbow to talk about what you guys want to do. So you head back over, you guys grab a round of drinks, and start discussing. At this point in the day, it is probably about 10 p.m., and you guys think it might be a good idea to take a rest and tackle the next part in the morning. So you do so. Everyone goes up in their own respective rooms. You come down the next morning to breakfast prepared by Christopher and Curry. And you guys sit down to breakfast and have a chat on what you guys should do next. Well, Wingo brings up the fact that since Captain Sparrow, and Matt quickly corrects him to say Captain Mason, he says, right, Captain Mason, mentioned the fact that the bandits do some sort of collection every now and again. So it might not be a bad idea to run in down there and check. The same thing with Rocky. Maybe go check up on him as well. But Brian brings up the good point that the dock has more people to take things from, so they would spend a majority of their time either at the docks or just running around the marketplace. But the docks would be a good place to go before, bright and early before the captain set sail. So you guys finish up your breakfast, head on down there. And about a minute or two before you guys get there, you hear a scream in the distance. And you guys immediately start running towards the docks. And as you get there, you see that there's Lunas tending to the wounds of another guard. And it looks like one new guard, new to the rotation, tried to stop the bandits from taking money from the people. And he got himself injured, and now Lunas is tending to his wound. You guys can see that Dusty is there, currently standing over one of the guards and Lunas. And you can see that the two sword and shield users are with him, and two of the archers are kind of far back, I'd say 10 to 15 feet behind him to his right. And you can see that the hooded figure is about 30 feet behind him. Where the other archer is, you do not know. You don't know if he's there, or maybe they're off doing something else. All these thoughts are rushing through your head, and you think that it might have been a good idea to discuss battle strategy over breakfast, but now that the time is upon you, there's no time for that. Your thoughts are disrupted by the shout of Dusty asking who you guys are and what do you think you're doing here. And Mizu explains that you guys are there to stop them. All the bandits laugh and ready their weapons and just welcome the challenge. You guys don't know what else to do but to get ready yourselves. So, Mizu, Garrett, and yourself start to run towards Dusty and what appears to be Leanne and Andrew waiting for you guys. And I guess the plan is that you three will keep the melee users occupied, and Wingo's gonna sit back along with Brian, and they're gonna do their own thing. Their ranged attack business. Matt, as you look around, has disappeared. You're not quite sure where he's off to. Did he run away? You're not entirely sure, but you all meet relative members of the opposing force in combat. Mizu takes on Dusty, and you and Garrett take on Leanne and Andrew. Mizu and Dusty start going at it. Mizu is able to get a few good hits in with his mace, but Dusty has the strength and the weapon to keep Mizu at bay. Meanwhile, you and Garrett are fighting Leanne and Andrew, and Garrett is quick, despite his size as a dwarf, and is very agile. He's able to get a nice few hits with his daibo, smacking Andrew across the face, Leanne in the stomach, and you're there to land a fury of blows with that pretty new sword you got. Wingo seems to fire off a few arrows there where you can't see, and you hope to assume that it's the other archer you couldn't see. But Matt is still nowhere to be seen until you hear a scream, a yelp. It seems that Matt just appeared out of nowhere, stabbed one of the archers in the back, and you heard the other archer that was standing 10 to 15 feet to the right of Dusty. You hear one of them scream, Famcam. So you're assuming Famcam was taken down by Matt. Now immediately, the other one goes to attack Matt. But Matt's moves are just a bit too articulate for that one, which you would assume is either Justin or Jeff. You're not quite sure. But Matt is able to keep out of harm's way, relatively able to dodge and weave, only take a few glancing blows here and there. In the meantime, Brian and the hooded figure, which you assume is Oatcake, are firing spells back and forth at each other. Brian sends over a few purple beams, which you would assume is magic missiles in D&D terms, and Oatcake is firing off beams of light, which in D&D terms is going to be guiding bolt. So they're going back and forth. Dusty and Mizu are still slashing away, although Mizu seems to be losing that battle, which is understandable because he is the leader. Matt is able to take down both of the archers that were off to the right without taking too much damage himself, although he is quite hurt. He did take on 2 people. Wingo was able to defeat his foe in a back and forth volley of arrows, although you do see an arrow stuck in his thigh. He broke off the tail end of it and is still able to move relatively, but he did take a hit and a glancing blow to the left shoulder, you surmise. In the meantime, you and Garrett were able to take out Leanne and Andrew. Garrett was able to land a solid blow against the jaw of Andrew, and you were able to disarm and knock unconscious Leanne. And that just leaves Dusty left. Taking advantage of the numbers game, Mizu goes for a leg sweep. Garrett sees his opportunity and does a nice palm strike to launch Dusty further up in the air, and then Wingo places an arrow into the left shoulder of Dusty, and with that, he's out cold. And just like that, you guys clean up the bandits. Not without your own injuries. Garrett took a few slashes to the shoulder and arm. You took a few slashes to your calf and right arm. But you all are alive and conscious for the most part. But Lunas comes up and greets you guys afterwards. He was, like I said before, tending to the wounds of a guard that had tried to take them on by himself. But he thanks you for what you've done and instructs that you should probably go and see the mayor now. he can wrap up here, and, as you talk with Lunas, you can hear the footfalls of more guards coming. You say goodbye to Lunas, and you head back to Steven's estate. Once you get there, you tell him the good news. He's obviously ecstatic, but he asks if you guys need to go to the infirmary, because you guys do seem a little worse for wear. Although you guys felt it, you guys were excited that you done your first major task anyway of becoming adventurers, making your own story. But you all agree that it would not be a bad idea to get yourselves checked up. So you head on over to the infirmary as directed by Steven, and he told you to tell the head doctor there that he sent you, and it should get you, free treatment. Liger and Kim are still in the room with Steven, and Matt and you hear them whisper, "Why didn't Dad have that other group do this instead of getting these new people?" Steven quickly hushes them and shoos them away to go play outside, but he also sends you away to go to the infirmary. You don't say anything about it, neither does Matt. You gather that Matt also heard it from the slight expression he had on his face. But as you guys walk to the infirmary, you talk about it. Who is this group? And why were they called first? In fact, why were you guys called in at all? You have to assume that they declined the offer, but why would they do that? You don't get a lot of time to talk because the infirmary is only a few minutes away, but you walk in and you're greeted by the head doctor. They introduce themselves as Tome by Tome. You joke that they must enjoy reading. But you guys get the treatment you need. It takes a few hours, but you guys are all bandaged up and ready to take on the next chapter. So you head on over back to Steven's estate to talk about the reward and this potential next job. So Steven hands over the 90 gold and talks about his brother. He says his name is Zorkard. He works as a merchant in a bigger city to the northeast of here. And the city is called Velgren, if none of you have heard it before. He asks if any of you are familiar. Not a lot of you are, and he says, it's to be expected. Most of you come from smaller towns. But he explains that it is a bigger city, under the Zarmorian Empire still. But his brother works there as a merchant, and might have a job for you. You guys huddle up and begin discussing whether or not you guys will take the job, but you guys are all fairly new to this adventuring gig, so the next step would probably be to take this and see where it leads. This group hasn't gone astray and did a pretty good job on the first adventure, so might as well stick it out. It doesn't take you guys that long to agree that you should probably take him up on this offer. So you quickly tell him that you're interested, and Steven is delighted and points you off to Noah. Now he is the town's stable master, and he can get you guys some horses for the day travel to Velgren. Now he said that if you tell him that you were sent by Steven, then you might be able to get a discount on the horses. Steven thanks you for the help again and asks if you guys have any questions. And Brian asks if there's anything he can tell you guys about Velgren. He says, not much. I've only been there a few times, he says. But he can tell you that there is a king. His name is Alejandro, and he has a military associate from the Zamorian Empire. He says that a lot of the bigger cities, and even the medium-sized cities, have military associates just in case the other empires get a little too friendly. So he says they have a military associate, and his name is Wallace. And that's about all he can tell you. He like he says, hasn't been there much other than to meet with his brother. But obviously tell him that he wishes him well when you meet him. You say thank you and good luck with your future endeavors. And you guys head on back to the Crooked Crossbow to discuss the next leg of your adventure. And as you come back and sit down, get around, you notice a figure with a black cloak and a golden X on it sit down at the same table as you guys. He doesn't say anything, he's just listening. Garrett quickly grows tired of this and asks him what he wants. He replies, just scoping out the competition. Matt says, what do you mean by that? Does oh nothing. You're the group that got rid of the bandits, yeah? And you all nod your head. Yeah, that was us. Pretty proud of it. It was your first big triumph as a group. He says, okay. Interesting. He gets up and leaves the tavern, but as he leaves, 5 others with the same cloaks get up from different areas around the room and walk out. You guys gather that this is the other group, possibly, that Stephen was thinking of hiring for the job. You think it's a good idea to ask Christopher and see if he knows anything about these individuals. He says not much. The only thing he really knows is their name, not where they come from, not even so much what they look like, but their names, they get around. He says there are 6 of them, as you saw, and their names are Nuteka, Ivan, Victor, Alex, Jim Boyoy, and Joe Mama. He instantly says after the last name that he wishes he was kidding, but he's not. You, again, for the second or third time, have to hold back laughing after hearing someone's name. But Christopher warns that it may be a silly name, but it might be to throw off people from the scent, so to speak, of the actual person. You thank him for his information and go back and share this information with the group. You don't really know what to do with it for right now. You don't really know what kind of threat they pose, and you all decide to keep tabs on these people as much as you can, but not worry about it too much. But you guys decide to get in lunch and head out for the day's journey to Velgrin. So you guys meet up with Noah. He introduces himself and thanks you for a job well done, and gives you a few horses and sends you on your way to Velgrin. Now, Windenshire held about 1,000 people, but Velgrin holds thousands upon thousands of people. You especially, but you gather that most of the other party members haven't really seen anything quite like this before. This massive of a city. And you guys go in and immediately seek out the market district, because that's where Zorkard will probably be working. It's easy enough to find because he has a sign on the outside of his shop that has his name plastered on it. So you walk in, and it's easy enough to spot. He looks very similar to Steven, or enough so that you can recognize the family traits. But you introduce yourselves and say that Steven sent you. He says good and introduces himself and asks what kind of experience you guys have just, dealing with issues. You guys say that the job that Steven gave you was really your first as a group anyway. He says, it's okay, but he may require a bit more of a resume. But he doesn't want to rule you out. But he just says he wants you to be prepared. Matt and Brian and Wingo actually ask at the same time if there's anything around town that, we should know about. He says there's a few places you guys might want to head and get some, equipment, or just kind of explore the city first before you come back and get the assignment from him. But he says that there's a king and a military officer from the Zarmorian Empire, which you were informed by Steven. But there's also a head of the guard, as per usual. His name is Dave. There's also a potion shop owned by Turtle if you ever want to get some potions if your adventures get a little too shaky. It's a good way to sustain yourselves out there. And no, the shopkeeper isn't an actual turtle, just his name. There's also a librarian named Ermiander, as he looks at Brian, who carries a multitude of books with him at all times. He also directs you guys towards a map maker or cartographer, because it might be useful, especially for you new folk to Velgrun, which is all of you, to get a map of Velgrun and some of the surrounding areas. And then there's also a magic equipment shop owner by the name of Ergoster. Now, he says that the shop is fairly expensive, but he carries some odd and useful trinkets. Maybe something for a later date when you guys have more coin. But he also directs you towards an inn that you guys can stay at for the coming days. But he says it's owned by his friends Sawu and Zero Fever. And the name of the inn is the Prancing Pony. But he says, go ahead, get some rest, and come back to me in the coming week. Doesn't have to be tomorrow, but in the next coming week, get back to me, and we'll discuss our little arrangement. To be continued. Thank you guys so much for listening. I realize it's very cringy, but I couldn't think of another way to possibly get 42 names in a story and not make it very long or spend like an absurd amount of time trying to come up with something. It's been about a month since I put out that tweet, and I was still struggling to try and find something suitable to try and fit everyone's name. But this is what I did, and I can live with it, I guess. I just feel bad for not getting everyone's name like as equally, or like as big as a role for each part. But it's kind of hard to split 42 people into like 42 roles that share the same amount of screen time, so to speak. But thank you for responding to my tweet and posting your names. This was fun, albeit a little bit difficult to come up with something, but I enjoyed the experience. It was fun. And thank you again for 1,000 subscribers. It is absolutely crazy. again, I still can't process it. It's wild. I will be coming out with something a little bit more exciting, hopefully, for the next video. Not this upcoming Wednesday, but the next Wednesday. I wish I could speak. But yeah, look forward to that. Spoiler alert, kind of. But I'm excited, and I want to tell you guys. It is an RP of sorts. So that should be fun. And it will include an actual camera of me. Well, okay, not a camera of me, but video of me. And, yeah, should be fun. For those of you who don't know what I look like, you will now. But, yeah, it should be a good time. I'm just thinking of all the stuff I gotta do now. I gotta write a script and all that good stuff. Although it won't be like a word-for-word script, but an outline. And that's kind of what I did with this, is I did a bit of an outline of the characters and like the order of which the events would go, but I didn't like write down to each line of what I would say, so it was interesting. Again, sorry for rambling so much. I tend to do that a lot, and I hope it doesn't get annoying, but I do it a lot, and I do tend to reiterate, I think, a bunch of stuff I've already said. But I hope you guys don't mind. Thank you guys for watching/listening. Thank you guys for 1,000 subscribers. It's still unbelievable to me. And I will see you guys in my next video, literally. Sleep well, everyone.